At midnight beyond Dunhuang, a caravan kneels beneath a sky so clear that every star seems sharpened by the cold. A camel bell trembles once, then disappears into the wind. Inside one leather-wrapped bundle lies a bolt of silk, bright as captured sunlight, worth carrying across a continent. The cloth is light enough to lift with one hand, yet its price can feed a household, pay a soldier, or secure a favor at court. The men around it do not speak one language. One prays toward the west, another keeps a Chinese tally on a wooden slip, and a third studies the dark line of dunes for movement. Their fire is small, their water is counted. Every mile ahead must be negotiated with sand, weather, officials, and strangers. A snapped axle or poisoned well can end the journey before an enemy appears. No single traveler here expects to see the final buyer. The silk may pass through 6 markets, 3 currencies, and a dozen pairs of hands before reaching a palace far beyond the merchant's map. Yet, each exchange pulls distant societies into the same fragile web. The merchant's genius is not to conquer the distance alone, but to know where his responsibility ends and another person's begins. This was the Silk Road, not a road and never only silk. It was a moving system of trust, appetite, translation, and risk. When it worked, China did not merely sell to the world. China and the world remade one another. Its unity existed in motion rather than administration, renewed each time a stranger decided that the exchange was safer than refusal. In this scroll, we'll follow that system from the Han frontier to the oasis markets of Central Asia and the cosmopolitan cities of the Tang. We'll see why geography alone could not create connection and why merchants, monks, translators, soldiers, and innkeepers matter more than any line drawn on a map. Their work formed the invisible architecture beneath every famous object now displayed behind museum glass. We'll also dismantle the familiar picture of one endless caravan marching from Chang'an to Rome. Most goods moved in relays, most people traveled only part of the distance. The true engine was a chain of local knowledge, where to find water, whom to trust, which ruler collected taxes, and which language could close a bargain. A traveler's practical map was made from remembered wells, family names, seasonal winds, rumors, and obligations, not from a continuous imperial highway. By the end, silk would look less like a luxury fabric and more like information made visible. Its threads carried status, diplomacy, wages, belief, and desire. Around it traveled horses, glass, metalwork, medicines, fruit, music, artistic forms, sacred texts, and stories that changed shape at every border. Even the simplest cargo could acquire a new identity. A cloth became tribute, a text became scripture, and a melody became local tradition. And the central question will become clear. How did a series of deserts, mountain passes, river valleys, and rival states become one of history's most powerful machines for cultural exchange? The answer lies in repeated cooperation among people who often disagreed about gods, laws, loyalties, and the shape of the world. In the previous scroll, the search for immortality transformed minerals and flame into gunpowder. A spiritual experiment escaped the laboratory and altered the fate of empires. Here, the transformation is quieter, nothing explodes. A thread simply moves from one hand to another and the world changes around it. Both stories begin with human longing and end with consequences no original experimenter could fully control. That continuity matters. Ancient China's global legacy was rarely the result of a single invention traveling untouched. Materials entered systems. Systems gave them new purpose. Gunpowder became weapon, ritual, signal, and spectacle. Silk became clothing, currency, diplomatic gifts, sacred offering, and proof that another civilization existed beyond the horizon. The object remained recognizable, but its social function shifted whenever a new community placed it inside a different system of value. The Silk Roads, therefore, belong to a larger story. The story of how Chinese knowledge and material culture left home, met resistance, found interpreters, and returned altered. Movement did not dilute meaning, it multiplied meanings. Return journeys matter as much as departures because foreign techniques, images, crops, beliefs, and words entered China through the same porous frontiers. To understand the process, we begin not with Marco Polo and not with a camel caravan, but with an exhausted envoy who returned to the Han court carrying no treasure at all, only intelligence. His report would help turn rumor into policy and the northwestern edge of China into an imperial corridor. In 138 before Common Era, Emperor Wu of Han sent Zhang Qian westward to seek an alliance against the Xiongnu. The mission failed almost immediately. Zhang Qian was captured and held for years. Yet he escaped, continued across Central Asia, and reached lands the Han court knew only through rumors. His endurance later became legendary, but the historical importance of the mission lies less in adventure than in the information he preserved. He encountered the prosperous valley of Dunhuang in Fergana, heard of powerful states further west, and learned of the displaced Yangtze beyond the Pamirs. These societies were not waiting for China to connect them. They already traded, fought, migrated, and exchanged information through networks older than Zhang Qian's journey. To call his mission a discovery would erase the farmers, diplomats, nomads, and traders who already understood those landscapes. When he finally returned, after more than a decade away, his most valuable cargo was a revised mental map. The Han court could now imagine the western regions not as an empty frontier but as a sequence of courts, markets, rivers, and resources. Geography became strategy. Once the court could name places and compare their interests, distance became something the state could plan around. Among the objects of imperial desire were the strong horses of Fergana. For an empire confronting mounted enemies on its northern frontier, such animals were not exotic ornaments. They represented military mobility, prestige, and access to a wider political world. Their speed and endurance linked foreign trade directly to the security anxieties of the Han state. Han expansion into the Hex corridor followed. Garrisons, farming colonies, signal towers, and protected passes strengthened the route toward Dunhuang and the Tarim Basin. These measures were instruments of defense and empire, but they also made regular traffic safer and more predictable. The same walls that marked imperial power also created predictable stages for messengers and merchants. Archaeology and surviving texts confirm the density of this contact. Beacon towers in the desert, wooden documents, imported glass, textiles, coins, religious art, and letters written by people far from home. The proof of the Silk Roads is not one heroic journey, it's the accumulation of ordinary traces. Together, these fragments reveal contact more convincingly than any later legend of a single road. China's silk moved west through these networks, often transferred from merchant to merchant across Central Asia and Iran before reaching Mediterranean consumers. The fabric traveled farther than the people who made it. That gap between origin and destination became the defining mechanism of the road. Each intermediary added cost, knowledge, and interpretation, making the final cloth both Chinese in origin and Eurasian in biography. Imagine the Silk Roads as a woven textile. The long threads are geography. The Hex corridor, the rings of the Taklamakan, the Pamir passes, the Iranian plateau, the steppe, and the sea lanes of the Indian Ocean. The crossing threads are human relationships. Without them, the pattern falls apart. The fabric holds because both kinds of threads cross repeatedly. Neither geography nor goodwill can carry commerce alone. Oases acted as knots. At places such as Dunhuang, Kusha, Khotan, Turfan, Kashgar, Samarkand, and Merv, caravans could find water, fodder, repair, storage, interpreters, credit, news, and protection. An oasis was not merely a green patch in the desert. It was an information exchange. Prices formed there, news accelerated there, and identities were renegotiated there. The goods that survived long-distance transport were usually valuable relative to their weight. Silk, gemstones, spices, aromatics, medicines, fine metalwork, glass, manuscripts, and pigments. Grain and pottery could travel regionally, but a camel crossing a deadly desert needed cargo that justified the risk. Luxury was therefore not mere extravagance. It was a solution to the mathematics of transport. Transport itself changed with terrain. Camels endured arid basins. Horses connected steppe routes. Yaks and pack animals crossed high mountains. Rivercraft and ships carried goods where water made bulk movement cheaper. The Silk Roads were a family of routes, not a single technology. Seasonal timing mattered as much as the animal chosen because snow, heat, and wind could close an otherwise familiar path. Trade also required institutions. Rulers taxed markets and passes. Soldiers guarded corridors. Monasteries hosted travelers. Merchant families extended credit. Diaspora communities introduced newcomers to trusted partners. A road could be built in stone, but commerce moved on reputation. The most valuable infrastructure was often invisible until it failed. Language formed another layer of infrastructure. Contracts, prayers, gossip, and prices crossed linguistic borders through multilingual merchants and translators. Sogdian, Chinese, Sanskrit, Prakrit, Tibetan, Persian languages, Turkish languages, and other overlapped across regions. Every successful transaction was also an act of interpretation. Translation did not merely replace words, it matched customs, measures, legal expectations, and sacred concepts. Most importantly, exchange was rarely direct. A bolt of silk might be produced in China, issued as tax payment or military salary, traded to a Central Asian broker, exchanged for horses or silver, carried west, cut and rewoven, then sold under a story its original makers never heard. By the time it reached a distant wardrobe, its route had become part of its price. That relay system explains both the power and the mystery of the Silk Roads. Distance increased value, but it also raised context. Objects arrived before accurate knowledge of the people who made them. Imagination filled the gaps. Foreign courts invented fantasies about distant producers, while Chinese observers did the same about peoples to the west. Now enter Dunhuang in the 7th century, when the Tang world is at its most outward facing. The city stands where the cultivated corridor narrows toward deserts. Behind its walls are granaries, offices, temples, workshops, inns and markets. Beyond them, the routes divide around the Taklamakan. Dunhuang is less the end of China than a hinge between agricultural empire and mobile Inner Asia. A caravan approaches from the east in a veil of dust. Its animals carry boats of silk, paper, lacquerware, tea for regional exchange, and official parcels sealed against tampering. Some cargo belongs to merchants, some represents taxes, salaries, tribute, or gifts. Trade and government travel together. A single train can therefore contain private ambition, state policy, religious obligation, and household survival. At the gate, officials examine documents and assess duties. A local fixer speaks with the caravan leader. News is exchanged before goods. A pass closed by snow, a ruler replaced, bandits seen near a well, prices rising in Kusha. Information can save more wealth than any guard. The first trade of the day is certainty. Inside the markets, the world narrows into gestures. A Chinese textile dealer tests a silver vessel from the west. A Central Asian merchant examines silk against the light. Glassware, horses, fragrances, gemstones, carpets, dried fruits, pigments, and metal objects compete for attention. Every object carries a geography, and every negotiation tests how much that geography is worth. Nearby, a Sogdian broker shifts easily between languages and social worlds. He knows which weights are trusted, which officials accept which documents, and which family can guarantee a debt. His advantage is not simply courage, it is connection. Where others see difference, he sees a sequence of relationships that can be activated. A Buddhist monk prepares to travel east with manuscripts and images. Another traveler moves west seeking teachers and sacred sites. Buddhism entered China through many such encounters, translated from Indian and Central Asian traditions into new Chinese vocabularies, images, institutions, and debates. Translations committees, patrons, and monastic communities would spend generations deciding how foreign concepts could speak in Chinese. Patrons fund cave temples outside the city. In the painted chambers of Mogao, artistic forms from India, Iran, Central Asia, and China meet without losing their differences. Robes, halos, musicians, deities, landscapes, and donors become a visual archive of movement. The caves are not illustrations of a single culture spreading. They are evidence of cultures learning to depict one another. After resupply, the caravan must choose. The northern route offers oasis towns but exposes travelers to harsh winds and political change. The southern route bends through Khotan, famous for jade and Buddhist culture, but demands its own negotiations with distance and water. The decision is commercial, political, seasonal, and spiritual at once. Beyond the basin rise the Pamirs, where altitude punishes lungs and animals. Cargo is reduced, routes narrow, one merchant turns back, another sells his share, a third joins a new caravan. The network survives because no individual must master the whole continent. A successful route is modular, expertise can be handed forward without the whole enterprise collapsing. Months later, perhaps years later, the silk appears in a Western court. It might be cut into foreign styles, used as a diplomatic gift, wrapped around a relic, or displayed as proof of wealth. The buyer sees China through the fabric, but through layers of transition, rumor, and desire. The object's final meaning belongs partly to every community that handle it. Remove one element from the system and the consequences spread. Let a river change course and an oasis shrinks. Let war close a pass and caravans wait. Let a dynasty withdraw its garrisons and protection becomes uncertain. The map remains, but the road stops functioning. Connectivity can vanish long before a route disappears from memory. Without reliable water, no caravan timetable can survive. Without fodder, animals weaken. Without trusted intermediaries, credit contracts and every exchange demands more silver, more guards and more suspicion. Costs rise before traffic disappears. Risk is cumulative and small failures compound across thousands of kilometers. Imagine Dunhuang silent, its inns empty and its wells neglected. A monk carrying a manuscript cannot simply walk further. A merchant cannot replace an interpreter with courage. A state cannot command geography to cooperate. Connection depends on maintenance. Heroism is a poor substitute for systems. Yet the failure of one corridor did not end the Eurasian exchange. Traffic shifted north toward the steppe, south toward India, or onto maritime routes linking Chinese ports with Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, and Western markets. The Silk Roads were resilient because they were plural. Merchants compared alternatives much as water seeks a new channel. This is why political histories alone cannot explain them. Empires opened and closed corridors, but merchants adapted to frontiers. Climate altered water systems, but communities engineered survival. Religious institutions provided lodging, while families preserved commercial memories across generations. The network's history is therefore ecological, institutional, and domestic as well as imperial. Without these networks, Buddhism would still have spread, states would still have traded, and inventions would still have traveled, but more slowly, unevenly, and through different channels. The counterfactual is not a sealed China and a sealed West. It is a world with fewer bridges and higher costs. Connections would persist, but the timing and geography of cultural change would be different. The lesson is severe. Connectivity is never automatic. It must be supplied with water, law, transition, credit, and tolerance for strangers. A route exists only while people continue to make it usable. The Silk Roads teach that openness is built from repeated acts of practical hospitality. No people reveal this human infrastructure more clearly than the Sogdians. Iranian-speaking communities centered on cities such as Samarkand and Bukhara, they became leading caravan merchants across Central Asia, especially from the 4th to the 8th centuries. Their homeland stood near the center of Eurasia, where several corridors and political worlds overlapped. They built diaspora communities along the routes and inside China. A merchant arriving in an unfamiliar city could seek relatives, partners, co-religionists, or a recognized caravan leader. Trust traveled through households before it traveled through institutions. These communities reduced the danger of distance by making foreign seats partially familiar. Letters discovered near Dunhuang preserved this world in intimate detail. Their writers discuss trade, debt, distant family, danger, and political catastrophe. The language of global exchange is not heroic, it is anxious, practical, and personal. One voice complains of abandonment. Another calculates survival amid news of a city's destruction. Sogdian merchants served courts, supplied armies, negotiated with nomadic powers, and connected markets. Some received Chinese titles associated with the leadership of foreign communities. They were neither invisible middlemen nor passive carriers. They shaped the system they used. Their expertise gave them political importance, but it also exposed them when political trust collapsed. Their tombs in northern China show lives assembled from several worlds. The stone funerary couch of Wirkak, known in Chinese as Shijun, combines Chinese funerary structure with scenes of travel, feasting, Zoroastrian ritual, and Central Asian identity. Migration became art. The monument refuses a simple choice between foreign and Chinese identity. Through Sogdian networks moved not only silk and silver, but music, dance, religious ideas, artistic motifs, and styles of dress. Their communities helped Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, Manichaeism, and forms of Christianity circulate across Asia, often translated into local forms. Transmission occurred through performance, marriage, patronage, translation, and daily life as much as through formal preaching. Their prominence also reveals the fragility of connection. Conquests in Central Asia and the upheaval surrounding the An-Lushan rebellion changed the political and economic environment that had sustained Sogdian trade. Networks can be durable without being permanent. After crisis, some descendants concealed or reworked foreign origins, showing how identity changes under pressure. The Sogdian case corrects the map. The Silk Roads were not simply China reaching west or Rome reaching east. They were built by societies in between, people whose importance came precisely from living between languages, empires, and worlds. Without the middle, the two imagined ends would never have formed a connected history. From this history, the first principle is simple: replace the image of a road with the image of a network. Roads suggest a beginning and an end. Networks reveal nodes, detours, bottlenecks, and many centers of power. This shift immediately reveals why some places flourish as hubs while others remain bypassed. Second, treat middlemen as creators. Every broker selects, explains, repackages, and sometimes transforms what passes through. Cultural exchange is not a transparent delivery system. It is a chain of interpretation. Third, look beneath spectacular objects. A silk robe survives in a museum, but behind it were mulberry growers, spinners, dyers, tax collectors, stable keepers, camel drivers, guards, scribes, money changers, translators, and cooks. Global history rises on local labor. To recover them is to replace wonder with a more truthful kind of admiration. Fourth, remember that China was changed by contact as deeply as it changed others. Horses altered military practice. Foreign music and dance entered elite culture. Glass, metalwork, fruits, artistic forms, and religions acquired Chinese meanings. Exchange has no untouched center. Tang, cosmopolitanism was not a foreign layer placed on China. It became part of what China was. Fifth, ideas travel different from goods. A manuscript can be copied, a ritual can be adapted, a melody can be remembered without its instrument. Once translated, knowledge may move faster than the object that first carried it. Translation can detach an idea from its birthplace and give it a second life. Sixth, refuse the romance of effortless connection. The roots also carried conquest, forced movement, taxation, exploitation, disease, prejudice, and danger. Cosmopolitan cities were real, but so were borders and violence. Exchange enlarges possibility. It does not guarantee justice. A complete history must hold beauty and danger in the same frame. Seventh, understand infrastructure as a moral choice. Wells must be shared, strangers permitted, contracts enforced, and interpreters valued. The physical route may be ancient, but the decision to keep it open is renewed by every generation. Connectivity expresses values through budgets, laws, hospitality, and the distribution of risk. Seen this way, the Silk Roads are not a decoratory prelude to globalization. They are a laboratory of globalization, decentralized, unequal, inventive, vulnerable, empowered by people who learn to cooperate without becoming the same. Its deepest question is still ours. How can difference become connection without becoming domination? Return to the caravan beneath the stars. The silk bundle still rests against the camel's flank, but now its true weight is visible. It carries the labor of one region, the ambition of another, the faith of a traveler, the calculation of a ruler, and the imagination of a distant buyer. The route has gathered meanings the original weavers could never have planned. China wove the road together not by commanding every mile, but by entering a system larger than any empire. Its silk became valuable because others desired it. Its frontiers became gateways because intermediaries made them legible. Its culture expanded because translation allowed it to change. Influence was strongest where control was incomplete and adaptation was necessary. The Silk Roads did not erase distance, they organized distance. They turned deserts into intervals, oases into meeting rooms, and foreignness into something that could be negotiated. Never safely, never completely, but often enough to alter history. That achievement was always temporary, dependent on maintenance and the willingness to begin again after disruption. Their greatest legacy is therefore not a commodity. It is a method. Connect nodes, protect movement, rework knowledge, and accept that every exchange transforms both sides. A thread becomes a web only when it crosses another thread. The pattern is neither pure nor fixed. Its strength comes from crossing. But connection creates competition as well as cooperation. The same corridors that carried monks and merchants also carried intelligence, alliances, arms, and deception. Once worlds become linked, strategy becomes the art of shaping what moves between them. Trade produces information, and information produces advantage. In the next scroll, we leave the market and enter the mind of conflict. The art of war, how ancient China turned observation, timing, terrain, and human nature into a philosophy of victory before battle begins. There, connection will reveal its sharper edge.